But first up, in the wake of the confronting documentary series Quiet on Set, a broader conversation has sparked over protections for young performers within the entertainment industry. For more on this topic, I'm joined by the Director of Hunted Talent and Bubblegum Casting, Adam Jacobs, in the studio. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. As a 90s kid, this was really disturbing stuff.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. It really was, and you know, you're obviously seeing these kind of these more and more of these stories coming out about sort of like, you know, the days of old of Hollywood and the entertainment industry, and things that are just really are quite, you know, for lack of a better expression, ick.
Very much so. Ick is the phrase I would use. But I'm curious to know, what are the current protection laws for child actors? You're obviously in the space, you're keeping an eye on these things. Where do we stand, I suppose? Look,
Australia's always been on the forefront of the protection laws in place for kids' entertainment. So there's, you know, beyond the fact that children's entertainment and anyone who's involved needs to have their police checks and they're working with children's checks, beyond that, there's actually even more protection. So each government, each state government actually has a permit process that's involved. And the employers, being the production companies, the casting directors, everyone has to apply for these permits. And these permits are heavily regulated and heavily protected, and the penalties are severe. Beyond that, child and grown-up talent agencies actually have labour hire licenses as well. Oh, okay. So we're beholden to not one, not two, but three bureaucratic bodies in terms of protection.
So you think things were pretty safe, right? Let's talk a little bit about the documentary and I guess how that critiques existing protection laws for young performers. Now, you and I haven't watched the whole thing, but I've seen so much noise about this online, so much on TikTok, people popping up with just these horrible little moments. Tell us your thoughts.
Look, I think it is pretty gross. One of the things that's so fascinating is like, where were the parents during this? You know, in terms of our kids that we represent, it's very rare that parents don't want to be involved in the process, including for kids that are quite successful. My sister was a very famous young child actress in Australia. She was on shows like The Saddle Club, Worst Best Friends, Holly's Heroes, Fergus McPhail. And so she grew up in this industry at the same time, in the 90s. Yeah. And the protections that were in place for her, you know, she was never alone with anyone. There was always at least 2 chaperones and things like that. You know, they were here a long time ago. Whereas some of the things you're hearing about, you know, there were, you know, directors were taking children home by themselves and all sorts of weird things other things that have come out, you know, along with this documentary. Yeah. It's pretty confronting stuff.
Extremely confronting, and it's confusing how it sort of happened. Again, as you said, where were the parents in all this thing? But what changes to protection laws actually need to occur, would you believe? You said you're under, you know, strict 3 bureaucratic pieces of tape. Yep. Is there anything else that needs to be done? Is it a different ball game in the US than it is here?
Yeah, well, Victoria's just updated their rules. So they've actually just matched with the New South Wales protocols for child protection and entertainment. So they've made them more rigid, which I think is a good thing. Yeah. New South Wales has by far been at the forefront of the protections, and they will continue to do so. So Children's Guardian is they're the responsible party in New South Wales. They are always, you know, pushing for more stringent protection, which is a good thing. Look, I think the US in general has some pretty, like, they have some answering to do around some of this stuff. You know, some of these things that we've heard, there were no protections in place when there really should have been. You know, we've had some business in the US, and sometimes it's quite surprising just how far they can actually still go comparative to here.
It's the Wild West. Sounds.
It really is.
Yeah. So how does the Quiet on Set documentary address the enforcement of these protection laws for actors, I suppose? When something like this comes out, there's obviously a lot of social discussion, but more officially, how does the industry respond to this kind of content?
Look, we've been on the forefront because we have to be in terms of the protections that are in place. One of the things, you know, we're not worried at all. We actually get audited against those protections. So we actually have government bodies audit our records and compliance against the protections we have to follow.
Nice.
So because of that, we know that we're already, you know, we're all good as our specific firm. The penalties of breach are very severe, and there's been some agencies that have nearly shut down over penalties for breach of this. There's been production companies that have been put out of business. So in Australia, I think we're pretty good. What would I do more? There's probably, I would more have like a register of people involved beyond the permit process. It's something that I would have, you know, just a register of people who, you know, almost like a a review system of people who work with kids as well as the permit system.
Interesting.
That's something I would add. But other than that, I think we really are continuing to innovate it here in Australia.
And improve and keep those young people performing, because it is a wonderful industry once you get going, of course, and it's so much fun. But I want to thank you for joining me on the program and, of course, bringing this important topic to Ticker today.
Thank you for having me.
No worries.